The small voice cut through his despair like a knife. Emma stood in the doorway of their shared bedroom, her teddy bear clutched tight against her chest. At 6 years old, she already knew the way to worry. It lived in the lines of her father's face, in the way he counted pennies at the grocery store, in the silence that filled their home when the phone rang with calls he wouldn't answer. "Hey, baby girl." Marcus forced brightness into his voice, the same way he'd been forcing smiles for 3 years, ever since Sarah's car had hydroplaned on Route 19 and taken half his world with it. "Can't sleep?" The thunder's too loud. Emma padded across the cold linoleum in her worn Princess Elsa pajamas. A birthday gift from the church donation bin. Are we going to have to leave our house? The question hit him harder than any debt collector's threat. Marcus pulled his daughter onto his lap, breathing in the strawberry scent of the discount shampoo they shared. "No, sweetheart. Daddy's going to figure it out. I always do, right?" The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. He'd already sold Sarah's wedding ring, the truck, everything of value. His construction job had dried up when his back gave out lifting rebar, and the disability checks barely covered food. The trailer park owner, Mrs. Chun, had been patient for months, but patience had limits. So did Charity. "You promise?" Emma's green eyes, Sarah's eyes, searched his face with the terrifying perception children possess when their world feels unstable. "I promise." Another lie to add to the pile. "Now get back to bed. School tomorrow." After tucking Emma in with whispered assurances and a lullaby sung off-key, Marcus returned to his table of shame. The calculator showed the same impossible math it had for hours. $2,347 owed, $89 in the bank. He pressed his palms against his eyes until stars exploded behind the lids. "God," he whispered into the empty room, "I don't ask for much. Never have. But Emma, she deserves better than this. If you're listening, if you're real, if you give a damn about a single father at the end of his rope, please, I need a miracle." The prayer dissolved into the sound of rain. Marcus had stopped believing in miracles around the same time he'd buried his wife. The universe didn't send angels to save people like him. It sent bills. He was reaching for the whiskey bottle. One small mercy he allowed himself on the worst nights, when 3 deliberate knocks echoed through the trailer. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was wrong. Too measured, too purposeful for midnight visitors in a trailer park, where everyone minded their own business and knew better than to wander in storms. Marcus glanced at the clock. 12:47 a.m. His heart kicked against his ribs. Another set of knocks, more insistent. "Mr. Webb." The voice that came through the thin door was female, rich and layered like aged wine, with an accent he couldn't quite place. Something European, ancient, refined. "I know you're awake. I can hear your heart racing from here." Every instinct screamed danger, but Marcus found himself standing, moving toward the door. Maybe it was Mrs. Chun come to personally deliver the final eviction. Maybe it was social services, finally deciding Emma would be better off in foster care. Maybe he opened the door. The woman standing on his sagging wooden steps made his breath catch his throat, and his mind struggled to process what his eyes were seeing. She was impossibly tall, 7 feet at least, perhaps more, and built like a warrior queen from some forgotten mythology. Raven black hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves that seemed to move independent of the wind. Her skin was pale as moonlight, flawless as marble, with a luminescence that made her appear lit from within. But it was her eyes that froze Marcus in place. Crimson, not hazel or brown with reddish tints, but pure, deep blood red, with vertical pupils like a cat. They held centuries in their depths, maybe millennia, and they were fixed on him with an intensity that made his knees weak. She wore a black dress that looked Victorian in cut, but modern in execution, hugging curves that seemed designed to tempt and terrify in equal measure. Despite the downpour, not a drop of rain touched her. The water simply parted around her, as if nature itself knew better than presumed contact. "So," she said, her lips curving into a smile that revealed teeth too white, too perfect, and 2 canines just slightly too long to be human. "You say you can't pay your rent." It wasn't a question. The mockery in her tone was gentle, almost playful, but underneath ran a current of something darker. She tilted her head, studying in the way a scientist might examine a specimen or a predator might size up prey. Marcus's mouth opened and closed without sound. His rational mind, the part that had gotten him through high school, through trade school, through grief and poverty, insisted this wasn't real. Women didn't look like this. People didn't look like this. The eyes were contact lenses. The height was heels. The rain thing was a trick of the porch light. But deeper instincts, older parts of his brain that remembered when humans huddled around fires to keep the night things away, knew exactly what stood before him. What are you? The words came out as a hoarse whisper. Her smile widened. I think you know, Marcus Webb, somewhere in that frightened little heart of yours, you know exactly what I am. She took a step closer, and though she didn't cross the threshold, her presence filled the doorway, oppressive and intoxicating. The question is, what am I doing here? Marcus stumbled backward, his hand instinctively reaching for the baseball bat he kept beside the door. Sarah's old softball bat, actually a Louisville Slugger she'd used in college. His fingers closed around familiar wood. The Vampire Queen, because that's what she was. His mind finally accepted it, laughed. The sound was beautiful and terrible, like church bells and breaking glass. Oh, please, that wooden stick won't help you. But I admire the courage of desperation. It's refreshing. She gestured casually. May I come in? We have much to discuss, and I prefer to do business sitting down. Business? Marcus's voice cracked. What business could I possibly have with a monster? She supplied helpfully. With a creature of the night? With a vampire queen who should only exist in bad movies and worse romance novels. She leaned against the doorframe. Still outside, he noted, still waiting for invitation. The business of survival, Mr. Webb, yours and your daughter's. The mention of Emma sent ice through his veins. Don't you dare. Threaten your child? The vampire's expression shifted, something almost like offense crossing her perfect features. Please, I don't prey on children. I'm not a demon, Marcus. I'm something far older and, in my own way, more honorable. She paused. Though I understand your fear, a father's instinct to protect is one of humanity's few admirable qualities. Then why are you here? Because you prayed. She said it simply, as if it explained everything. You asked for a miracle. You begged whatever powers might be listening for help. And she spread her hands, I happen to be listening. Marcus's mind reeled. God sent a vampire. Another laugh, darker this time. God? No, dear Marcus. God doesn't answer prayers like yours. He's far too busy with wars and famines and the prayers of megachurch pastors begging for private jets. But there are other powers in this world, older powers, and some of us still remember what it means to make a deal. A deal? He said it flatly, his grip tightening on the bat. Let me guess. My soul for rent money. So derivative. The vampire waved dismissively. Souls are complicated. And frankly, I'm not in the soul-collecting business. That's more demonic territory, and demons are dreadfully boring. No, she fixed it with those blood-red eyes. What I offer is far more practical. Security, stability, a future for your daughter, a life where you're not counting pennies and swallowing pride. Despite everything, the impossibility, the danger, the sheer insanity of the situation, Marcus felt hope flicker in his chest. It was pathetic. It was desperate. But when you're drowning, you grab at anything. In exchange for what? Now we're negotiating. The vampire's smile turned approving. I like you, Marcus Webb. Most men would still be screaming or try and convince themselves they're hallucinating. You're practical, sensible, a survivor. She paused for effect. I need something only you can provide. And before your mind jumps to blood, yes, blood is part of it, but not how you think. What I need is far more interesting. Tell me? Invite me in first. When he hesitated, she sighed. Marcus, if I wanted to harm you, I could tear this trailer apart from the outside. The threshold is a courtesy, a rule we follow because without rules, we're just animals. Invite me in. Let's sit like civilized beings, and I'll explain everything. You have my word, ancient as I am, that neither you nor Emma will be harmed tonight. What choice did he have? Marcus stepped aside. Come in. The vampire queen crossed the threshold, and the temperature in the trailer dropped 10 degrees. She moved with inhuman grace, her height forcing her to duck slightly as she entered. When she settled into the kitchen chair, looking absurdly regal against a backdrop of peeling wallpaper and past-due notices, Marcus felt reality tilt further off its axis. She arranged her dress carefully, then folded her hands on the table. My name is Seraphine. I've had others, dozens, but that's the one I currently favor. I am approximately 3,000 years old, give or take a century. I was born in what you now call Egypt, turned during the reign of Ramesses III, and I've walked this earth through empires rising and falling like waves. Marcus sank into the opposite chair, bat still in hand. Why tell me this? Because knowledge is power, and I respect those I do business with. Seraphine's eyes glinted. I am a vampire queen. Not a title I gave myself, but one earned through age, power, and the loyalty of others of my kind. I don't kill indiscriminately. I don't create chaos. I exist in the shadows of your world, observing, occasionally interfering when something catches my interest. And I caught your interest? Your prayer did. She tilted her head. Do you know how many people pray each night, Marcus? Millions. Billions. A cacophony of desperate voices begging for lottery winnings and revenge and lost loves. But every so often, there's a prayer that cuts through the noise. Pure, honest, a father's love distilled into words. That, she tapped the table, that's rare. So, what do you want from me? He needed to understand before hope fully took root. You said blood, but not how I think. What does that mean? Seraphine leaned forward, and Marcus caught a scent like jasmine and old libraries. I need someone to anchor me to this place, to this region. You see, vampires of my age become unstable. We exist so far beyond human experience that we risk losing connection to the physical world entirely. We fade into something else, something less. To prevent this, we bond with a human, not sexually, not romantically, though affection can develop, but energetically. A tether, your blood, willingly given twice monthly, mixed with ritual binding. It keeps me solid, present, real. In exchange, I use my considerable resources to ensure you and Emma want for nothing. Money, housing, education, healthcare, protection from any who might threaten you, and more. She paused. I can offer you something special. Something most humans would kill for. What? Time. Seraphine's smile was knowing. The ritual that binds us would slow your aging dramatically. You'd have decades more with your daughter. You'd see her graduate, marry, have children of her own. You'd be young and healthy long enough to matter. The offer hit Marcus like a physical blow. More time, more years with Emma. The chance to be there for all the moments he'd been terrified of missing. Her first date, her prom, walking her down the aisle. Since Sarah's death, that fear had consumed him. What happened to Emma if he died? Who would love her? What's the catch? Because there was always a catch. Honesty. I appreciate that. Seraphine nodded approvingly. The catch is simple. You're mine. Not as a slave or servant, but as my charge. My responsibility. Where I go, you eventually follow. Who I need you to be, you become. The bond works both ways. I'll feel your emotions, your pain. If you're threatened, I'll know. If you're suffering, I'll sense it. We become entangled. And if I refuse, then I walk out that door and you never see me again. You'll face eviction in 3 days. Social services will likely take Emma. When you're homeless, you'll spiral into despair, probably dead from alcoholism or despair within 5 years. Emma will grow up in foster care, possibly abused, definitely traumatized. Or, Seraphine's voice dropped lower, you take my hand and I save you both. Marcus looked at his daughter's crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator. Emma's stick figure family, her, him, and an angel labeled Mommy in Heaven. His chest ached. How do I know you won't hurt us? You don't. Seraphine's honesty was brutal. But consider this. I've existed for 3 millennia. I've seen empires burn and been beautiful the entire time. I don't need to lie to you. I don't need to trick you. I'm offering a transaction, clearly stated, with terms defined. That's more than most humans offer each other. She stood, her presence filling the tiny kitchen. I'll give you until tomorrow night to decide. Pray on it. Think on it. But know this, Marcus Webb, miracles don't knock twice. Seraphine moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The man who owned this trailer park, Mrs. Chen's husband, he died 6 months ago and left her with debt she can't pay. The park is being sold to developers next month. Even if you could pay rent, you'd still lose this place. Marcus's stomach dropped. How do you know that? I know many things. It's the privilege of age. She smiled over her shoulder. Say yes, and I'll buy the park. You and Emma can stay as long as you wish. I'll renovate, improve, help the people here. Or say no and watch this place become luxury condos. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her, leaving Marcus alone with impossible choices and the fading scent of jasmine. He sat in silence for a long time, staring at the eviction notice. Outside, the rain continued its assault on the tin roof. Inside, Marcus Webb began to understand that monsters might be the only ones willing to save you when God looked away. Tomorrow night, he'd have an answer. Tonight, he had only fear, hope, and the terrifying realization that his daughter's future might depend on shaking hands with a vampire queen. The baseball bat fell from his grip, clattering on the linoleum. In her bedroom, Emma slept, dreaming of angels and castles and fathers who never went away. Marcus didn't sleep. How could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Seraphine's crimson gaze, heard her voice promising salvation at a price he couldn't fully comprehend. He spent the night researching vampires on his cracked phone screen. Folklore, mythology, modern fiction, but none of it felt real compared to the elegant horror that had sat in his kitchen. By sunrise, Emma was up, chattering about a spelling test while Marcus made her breakfast with mechanical precision. Eggs from the last carton, toast from discount bread, orange juice watered down to make it last. She didn't notice his trembling hands or the dark circles under his eyes. You okay, Daddy? She asked it while tying her shoes, those impossibly perceptive eyes studying him. Just tired, baby girl. Didn't sleep great. Not a lie, technically. He kissed her forehead. Go on. Bus will be here soon. He watched through the window as Emma climbed aboard the yellow school bus, her backpack nearly as big as she was. The moment it disappeared around the corner, Marcus collapsed onto the couch. The eviction notice stared at him from the kitchen table. 48 hours remaining. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered. Marcus Webb. The voice was crisp, professional. This is Jennifer Hartley from Appalachian Child and Family Services. We received some concerns about your living situation. I'd like to schedule a home visit to discuss. He hung up. His hands were shaking. The walls were closing in. Social services. Eviction. Everything Seraphine had predicted manifesting before noon. Coincidence? Or had she set things in motion to force his hand? Did it matter? Marcus spent the day in a haze, cleaning the trailer obsessively, as if scrubbing the rust stains from the sink might somehow fix his life. He rehearsed saying no to Seraphine. He practiced saying yes. Both felt like jumping off a cliff in different directions. At 3:47 p.m., Emma burst through the door with her usual explosive energy, brandishing a spelling test marked with a gold star. I got 'em all right, Daddy. Even beautiful. That's my girl. Marcus swept her into a hug, breathing in her innocence. So smart, just like your mama. They made dinner together. Spaghetti with sauce from a jar, garlic bread from the day-old bakery section. Emma talked about her friend Madison's birthday party at the roller rink, a party she wouldn't mention being invited to because she already knew they couldn't afford the admission or a present. 6 years old and already learning to hide her wants to protect her father's feelings. That broke something in Marcus. After tucking Emma in with 3 stories instead of the usual 2, he sat on the couch in darkness, waiting. The clock ticked toward midnight. He'd made his decision somewhere between Goodnight Moon and Where the Wild Things Are, in the space where Emma's sleepy breathing reminded him what actually mattered. At 11:59 p.m., 3 measured knocks announced Seraphine's return. Marcus opened the door immediately. "I'll do it." The vampire queen stood on his steps looking exactly as she had 24 hours prior. Flawless, impossible, real. She tilted her head, studying him with those ancient eyes. "You're certain? Once we begin the binding, there's no undoing it. You'll be mine until death naturally takes you, which, granted, will be far longer than you'd expect." "I'm certain." Marcus's voice was steady. "But I have conditions." A slight smile played at her lips. "Do you now? Brave little mortal. Go on." "Emma never finds out what you are unless absolutely necessary. She gets to have a normal childhood. Friends, school, birthday parties. You protect her from your world." He took a breath. "And if anything happens to me, you make sure she's taken care of. Adopted by good people. Loved. Safe." Seraphine was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Agreed. Your daughter will be shielded from the shadows as long as possible. Children should be allowed their innocence." She extended a pale hand. "But I add one condition of my own. You don't lie to me. Ever. The bond will make me sensitive to your emotions. But I value verbal honesty. Deception breaks trust, and trust is all we'll have." Marcus grasped her hand. It was cool, not cold, like marble that had been sitting in shade. Her grip was firm, and the moment their skin touched, he felt something electric pass between them, a spark of recognition, as if his soul suddenly acknowledged hers. "Where do we do this?" he asked. "Here is fine. The location matters less than intent." Seraphine entered the trailer, her presence transforming the shabby space into something that felt like a chapel. She moved the kitchen table aside, creating an open area on the worn linoleum. "We'll need your blood. About a cup's worth. It won't hurt as much as you fear." She produced items from seemingly nowhere. A silver chalice engraved with symbols Marcus didn't recognize, a small ceremonial blade with a handle wrapped in leather, candles that smelled of myrrh, and something darker. Within minutes, she'd arranged them in a circle, the candles' flames casting dancing shadows that made the trailer feel ancient. "Kneel here." Seraphine indicated the circle's center. The ritual is part Egyptian, part medieval, part something older that has no name in your languages. I'll speak the binding words. When I'm finished, you'll drink from the chalice, and I'll drink from you. Our blood will mix, and the tether will form. Marcus knelt, his heart hammering. This was insane. This was real. This was happening. Seraphine stood before him, suddenly seeming even taller, more otherworldly. She began speaking in a language that predated Latin, words that felt like they were being pulled from the foundation of the world itself. The candles flickered, though there was no breeze. The temperature dropped until Marcus could see his breath. The vampire queen's eyes began to glow, not red now, but a fierce crimson gold, like embers. Her voice layered, harmonized, as if multiple beings spoke through her throat. The words weren't just sounds. They were power pressing against Marcus's chest, seeping into his skin. He felt dizzy. The room seemed to expand and contract. Reality grew thin. Seraphine picked up the ceremonial blade, drawing it across her palm without hesitation. Black blood, not red, but deep obsidian black, welled up and dripped into the chalice. The liquid hissed and steamed. Then she knelt before Marcus, taking his hand with surprising gentleness. "This will sting," she whispered, her voice now only her own. The blade was sharper than anything Marcus had ever felt. It parted his skin like paper, and his blood, bright human red, joined hers in the chalice. The two blood should have mixed, but instead they circled each other, red and black, in an eternal dance. Seraphine lifted the chalice, speaking more words in that ancient tongue. Then she pressed it to Marcus's lips. "Drink." The liquid tasted like copper and wine and electricity and darkness. It burned going down, and Marcus gasped, feeling it spread through his body like fire through dry grass. His vision blurred. He felt his heartbeat synchronized with something vast and old. Then Seraphine was pulling him forward, her mouth against his neck, and he felt her fangs pierce his skin. It didn't hurt, not exactly. Instead, there was pressure, intimacy, a violation that somehow felt like coming home. She drank, and with each pull, Marcus felt pieces of himself flowing into her. Memories, emotions, the taste of his first kiss with Sarah, the sound of Emma's first cry in the delivery room, the weight of his grief, the shape of his love. But it flowed both ways. Suddenly Marcus was experiencing her. 3,000 years cascaded through his mind in fragments. Sand dunes under alien stars, temples of forgotten gods, the taste of Pharaoh's blood, wars fought with bronze and iron and steel, lovers taken and lost across centuries, the loneliness of eternity, the weight of countless souls, power that could shatter mountains, and underneath it all, a woman who'd been human once, who remembered mortality like a dream. He saw her turning. A young priestess, 23 years old, dying of plague in a temple, visited by something older than Egypt itself. He felt her choice, death with honor or immortality with uncertainty. He experienced her first kill, the horror and ecstasy, the slow transformation from human to predator to something in between. He understood her now. Seraphine wasn't evil. She was survival distilled to its purest form, ancient enough to see mortals as mayflies, yet curious enough to still care. When she finally pulled away, Marcus collapsed backward, gasping. Blood trickled from the 2 puncture wounds on his neck. Small, precise, already healing faster than they should. Seraphine licked her lips, her eyes now soft, almost vulnerable. "It's done." Her voice was hoarse. "I can feel you inside me now. Your fear, your love for Emma, your grief for Sarah. God, Marcus, you feel so much. How do humans live with this intensity?" Marcus tried to speak, but the world was spinning. He felt different, lighter somehow, as if gravity had loosened its grip. His chronic back pain was gone. The fatigue that had been his constant companion for 3 years had evaporated. He felt young, strong, alive in a way he hadn't since before Sarah's death. "What did you do to me?" The words came out awed rather than frightened. "I bound us. You're mine now, and I'm yours. We're tethered across the space between living and undead." Seraphine helped him stand, steadying him with inhuman strength. "The changes will be subtle, slower aging, enhanced healing. You won't be vampire. You're still beautifully fragile mortal, but you're touched by what I am, marked." She pressed her palm against his chest, over his heart. "I feel it beating. I haven't felt a heartbeat from the inside in 3 millennia. It's..." She paused, searching for words. "It's extraordinary." Marcus looked at his hand where she'd cut him. The wound was already closed, leaving only a thin pink line. "What happens now?" Now I make good on my promises." Seraphine's business-like demeanor returned. She pulled a phone from somewhere in her dress, sleek, expensive, completely incongruous with her Victorian aesthetic. She made a call, speaking with quiet authority. "Yes." The trailer park on Route 19. "Purchase the full property. Pay triple asking price for immediate closing. Renovations to begin within the week. Yes, full electrical, plumbing, structural. No, I'll oversee it personally." She ended the call, then made 3 more in rapid succession. To a lawyer, to a bank, to someone she addressed as Father Thomas at a local Catholic church. Within 15 minutes, she arranged for Marcus to receive a charitable grant from a church foundation one she apparently controlled, cleared all his debts, and enrolled Emma in a private school that will provide scholarships and wraparound services. Marcus watched in stunned silence as his entire life was reorganized by a creature who could probably buy and sell the entire state of West Virginia. "You're scary efficient," he finally said. 3,000 years teaches you to cut through red tape. Seraphine allowed herself a small smile. "I'm also having a proper house built for you and Emma. Nothing ostentatious. We don't want to draw attention, but clean, safe, with good bones. It'll be ready in 6 months. Until then, you'll stay here, but the rent is paid and utilities are handled." "Why do all this?" Marcus had to ask. "You said you needed an anchor, but this seems like..." "More." Seraphine moved to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked trailer park. Because I remember being human, Marcus. I remember loving someone more than my own existence. I had a daughter once, long before I turned. She died of fever at 4 years old. I held her while she burned, unable to help, powerless despite all my prayers to gods who didn't answer. She turned back to him. Emma reminds me of her. And you remind me of who I was. Desperate, loving, willing to sacrifice anything. The vulnerability in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. He felt it through the bond now. Her ancient grief, still raw after millennia. Vampires, apparently, didn't forget. I'm sorry, he said softly, for your daughter. Her name was Nefret. It means the beautiful one has come. Seraphine's smile was sad. I've had 3,000 years to mourn her. Sometimes I think that's why I've never created another vampire. No one to share eternity with. Because I couldn't bear to watch them suffer lost the way I have. She shook her head. But enough philosophy. You need rest. The ritual is exhausting for mortals. She was right. Marcus suddenly felt bone-tired, as if he'd run a marathon. You're leaving? For now. I'll return tomorrow night. We'll need to do regular feedings, twice monthly, as I said. It's enough to maintain the bond without weakening you. Seraphine moved toward the door, then paused. Marcus, you made the right choice. I know you're afraid. I know this feels like selling your soul. But I swear on Nefret's memory, I will protect you and Emma. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine. Then she was gone, dissolving into shadow and rain, leaving Marcus alone in a trailer that suddenly felt too small for everything that had just happened. He stumbled to the bathroom, flipping on the light. In the mirror, he looked different. Same face, same features, but his eyes seemed brighter, sharper. The gray in his temples had lessened. The lines around his eyes had softened. He looked like himself 5 years ago, before grief and poverty had aged him prematurely. Marcus touched the healed puncture wounds on his neck. They were barely visible, would disappear completely by morning. He'd made a deal with a vampire. He'd drunk her blood. He'd bound himself to something that existed in myths and nightmares. And somehow, impossibly, he felt hopeful for the first time in 3 years. In her bedroom, Emma slept, oblivious of the fact that her father had just traded their mortality for a chance at life. Oblivious to the ancient being who now watched over them from shadows. Marcus Webb, single father and designated failure, had become something new, a vampire queen's tether to humanity. He crawled into bed fully clothed, too exhausted to change. Sleep took him immediately, and he dreamed of temples and deserts, of blood and sand, of a woman with crimson eyes who held a dying child and wept tears that turned to rubies. When he woke 8 hours later feeling more rested than he had in years, Emma was already up, eating cereal and watching cartoons. Sunlight streamed to the windows. Ordinary and beautiful. Life continued. Change, but continuing. And somewhere in the shadows of Appalachia, a vampire queen who'd walked through empires smiled, feeling the beat of a human heart echoing in a hollow where hers had once lived. The tether held. The bond was sealed. Everything else would follow. 3 months passed like a fever dream. The trailer park transformed under Seraphine's influence. Contractors appeared within days, renovating electrical systems, replacing roofs, paving roads that had been gravel and mud for decades. Mrs. Chin cried when Seraphine, introduced to the community as Ms. Sterling, a philanthropic investor, assured her she could stay rent-free and manage the property. Other families who'd been one disaster away from homelessness suddenly found stability. Marcus watched it all with a mixture of gratitude and unease. By day, he was just another struggling dad getting a lucky break. By night, twice monthly, he became something else entirely. The willing meal and anchor for a 3,000-year-old predator who was steadily becoming the most important person in his life besides Emma. The feedings had become routine, almost intimate. Seraphine would arrive after Emma went to sleep, and they'd sit together. Sometimes in a renovated trailer, sometimes in a new house being built on a hill overlooking the park. She'd talk about ancient Rome or medieval France, or watching the first automobiles with skeptical amusement. He'd talk about Emma's school achievements, or his own childhood, or Sarah. Sarah, Her name came easier now, the grief softened by time and the strange comfort of Seraphine's presence. The vampire never pushed, never judged, just listened with the patience of someone who'd heard 10,000 human stories and still found them fascinating. Then she'd drink, and for those minutes, Marcus would feel her inside his mind, experiencing his memories, his emotions, his very soul. And he'd feel her in return, the vast loneliness of immortality, the weight of centuries, the hunger that never truly stopped. It should have been horrifying. Instead, it felt necessary. Right, like puzzle pieces clicking together. Emma, meanwhile, thrived. The private school Seraphine had enrolled her in, St. Mary's Academy, run by an order of nuns who apparently owed Seraphine some ancient favor, was everything Marcus had dreamed of for his daughter. Small classes, dedicated teachers, programs for art and music and athletics. Emma was reading above grade level, making friends, coming home with stories about field trips to museums and plays. She asked about Miss Sterling occasionally. Is she like your girlfriend, Daddy? The question had made Marcus choke on his coffee. No, baby girl. She's a friend. Someone who's helping us out. She's really pretty, Emma had observed with the blunt honesty of children, and really tall, like a giant, but a nice giant. If only she knew. But the illusion of normalcy couldn't last forever. Marcus learned this on a humid July night when everything fell apart. It started with a phone call. Marcus was at the new house, nearly finished now. A beautiful 2-story craftsman with actual bedrooms and a yard where Emma could play. Checking on construction progress. Seraphine had texted earlier, emergency. Can't make tonight's feeding. Will explain soon. Unusual, but not alarming. Until his phone rang with an unknown number. Mr. Webb? The voice was male, young, shaking with fear. My name is David Chun. I'm Mrs. Chen's nephew. Something's wrong with my aunt. She's acting strange. She keeps talking about someone named Sterling and saying she needs to confess. She's locked herself in her office and won't come out. I thought, maybe since you know Miss Sterling. Marcus's blood ran cold. The bond, that invisible tether connecting him to Seraphine, suddenly flared with alarm. He felt her emotions like a punch to the gut. Fury, concern, and something else. Hunger. Deep, ancient, barely controlled hunger. I'll be right there. He hung up, already running. Mrs. Chen's office was in the old trailer park manager's building, a small structure at the park's entrance. Marcus arrived to find David outside, a thin kid, maybe 19, pacing anxiously. Lights blazed from inside the office, and through the window, Marcus could see Mrs. Chen sitting at her desk, staring at nothing. She won't answer me, David said desperately. She just keeps whispering about blood and sin, and how she needs to tell someone what she saw. Dread settled in Marcus's stomach. What did she see? I don't know. She won't tell me. She just... The office door suddenly opened. Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway, and Marcus barely recognized her. The sweet elderly woman who'd shown him kindness for years looked haggard, eyes wild, face pale. She was clutching a rosary, so tightly her knuckles were white. Marcus. Her voice was hoarse. You need to get away from her. From that woman. She's evil. She's damned. I saw. She broke off, shaking. I saw what she is. Andy, please. David tried to approach her, but she held up a hand. 3 nights ago, I couldn't sleep. I went for a walk, and I saw her, Miss Sterling, in the wood behind Lot 47. She was... Mrs. Chen's voice dropped to a horrified whisper. She was feeding. There was a man, a drifter, I think, and she had him against a tree, and her mouth was on his neck, and there was so much blood. She dropped him when she was done, left him there like garbage, and then she looked right at me. Her eyes were glowing red. Marcus. Like a demon. Marcus's mind raced. Seraphine had been so careful. 3 months without incident. Why would she feed so recklessly? Unless, through the bond, he felt it. Seraphine's hunger had been building. She'd been holding back, trying to survive on just his blood to avoid drawing attention, to keep her promise of protection. But 2 feedings a month from one human wasn't enough for a vampire of her age and power. She'd been starving herself to keep Emma safe, and she'd finally lost control. "Mrs. Chun," Marcus said carefully, "you're upset. Maybe you saw." "Don't patronize me," she shrieked. "I know what I saw. That woman is a monster, and she's got her hooks in you somehow. I called Father Benedict at the church. I told him everything. He's coming with help." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm trying to save you, Marcus. You and that sweet little girl." David looked between them, confused and frightened. "Annie, what are you talking about? Vampires aren't real. You must have seen." "Your ignorance doesn't make me crazy." Mrs. Chin backed into her office, still clutching her rosary. "They're coming. Holy men. They'll know what to do. They'll save us from her." She slammed the door. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Seraphine. "Where are you?" He typed back, "Trailer park. Mrs. Chin saw you feeding. She called a priest. Says they're coming." The response was immediate. "Get Emma and leave. Now." "They're vampire hunters, Marcus. Real ones. The church still has a few groups who remember how to kill my kind. If they find you with me," another text, "they'll kill you too. Fuck." Marcus turned to David. "Go home. Get away from here." "What? Why? What's?" "Just go." Marcus ran. The bond pulled him toward Emma, toward home, toward his daughter who was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her father's deal with Vampire Queen had just exploded into violence and danger. He burst into the trailer to find Seraphine already there, in Emma's room, watching her sleep. The vampire turned as Marcus entered, and he saw something in her expression he'd never seen before. Genuine fear. "We have minutes," Seraphine said quietly. "Maybe less. I can smell them coming. Holy water. Blessed silver. Faith weaponized into murder." She looked back at Emma. "I won't let them hurt her because of what I am. I won't let them punish her for my sins." "Then we run," Marcus said. "All of us. They'll follow. And if I'm with you, Emma becomes a target." Seraphine moved to Marcus, cupping his face with cold hands. "The bond, I can sever it. It will hurt, but it will break the connection between us. They won't sense you as mine. You and Emma can stay, live normal lives. I'll disappear." "No." The word came out fierce. "You saved us. I'm not letting you face this alone." "Marcus, I mean it. We're leaving together, or I'm standing beside you when they get here." He met her crimson gaze steadily. "You said I'm yours. Well, it goes both ways. You're mine, too." Seraphine stared at him for a long moment, and through the bond, Marcus felt her emotion. Shock, gratitude, and something warmer. Something that might have been love if vampires could still feel such things. "You beautiful, stupid, brave man," she whispered. Then her expression hardened. "Fine. Wake Emma. Pack only what matters. We have 5 minutes." Marcus moved on autopilot. He woke Emma gently, fighting to keep his voice calm. "Hey, baby girl, we need to take a trip. Right now. Can you grab your favorite toys while Daddy packs?" Emma, groggy and confused, nodded. "Is something wrong?" "Everything's fine," Marcus lied. "Just an adventure, like a vacation." While Emma gathered her stuffed animals, Marcus threw clothes and documents into a duffel bag. Birth certificates, social security cards, photos of Sarah, the essentials of a life that could be rebuilt. Seraphine stood watch at the window, tense as a wire. "They're here. 3 vehicles. I smell blessed silver. They prepared." She turned to Marcus. "We go out the back. My car is in the woods. I had it brought here earlier when I sensed trouble. We make it to the car, we survive." "What about Mrs. Chun? David? The other families?" "They'll be fine. The hunters want me, not humans under my protection. Once I'm gone, they'll investigate. Find nothing, leave." Seraphine's jaw tightened. "It's always this way. We exist in shadows, and when light finds us, we run or die. 3,000 years, and the pattern never changes." Emma emerged with her backpack full of toys. "I'm ready, Daddy." Marcus scooped her up. "Good girl. Now we're going to go very quietly, okay? Like we're sneaking up on a deer." They slipped out the back door into the humid night. The woods behind the trailer park were dense with kudzu and pine, the darkness absolute. But Seraphine navigated effortlessly, her night vision perfect, guiding them through terrain that would have been impassable for humans. Behind them, shouts erupted. There! Movement! Run! Seraphine commanded. They ran. Marcus clutched Emma against his chest, his enhanced endurance, gift of the bond, allowing him to sprint through underbrush that should have winded him in seconds. Seraphine moved like smoke ahead of them, impossibly fast, turning back occasionally to ensure they followed. A crossbow bolt whistled past Marcus's ear, thudding into a tree. Blessed silver, probably. Another near miss. Emma whimpered against his shoulder, and Marcus felt fury burn through his terror. These self-righteous bastards were shooting near his daughter. The car! Seraphine shouted. 200 yards. They burst into a small clearing where a black SUV waited, engine running. Seraphine had planned for this. Of course she had. 3,000 years teaches preparation. Marcus threw open the back door, buckled Emma in with shaking hands. It's okay, we're okay. Seraphine was already in the driver's seat. Marcus barely got his door closed before she accelerated. The SUV tearing through the woods on a barely visible trail. Tree branches scraped the sides. The undercarriage slammed over roots and rocks. Behind them, flashlights bounced through the darkness. More shouts. Then the crack of gunfire. Real guns now, not just crossbows. They're not supposed to use firearms, Seraphine snarled, her driving somehow precise despite the chaos. There are rules. Even hunters have. The back window exploded inward. Marcus covered Emma instinctively, feeling glass slice his arms. The SUV swerved, and Seraphine corrected with inhuman reflexes. They hit the main road doing 60, tires screaming. Are they following? Marcus gasped. Seraphine checked the mirror. Yes, 2 vehicles. We need to lose them before dawn. Dawn. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. What happens at dawn? I become significantly less effective in sunlight. Not the instant death movies portray, but weakened. Vulnerable. If they catch us in daylight. She didn't finish the sentence. Emma was crying now, terrified and confused. Marcus pulled her close, whispering reassurances he didn't believe. It's okay, baby girl. We're safe. Daddy's got you. They drove through the night, Seraphine taking random turns, doubling back, using every evasion technique from 3 millennia of being hunted. Eventually, the pursuers fell away, outdistanced or outmaneuvered. At 4:37 a.m., Seraphine pulled into a rest stop. They were somewhere in Virginia now, hours from West Virginia. She slumped over the steering wheel, and Marcus saw her hands shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. I got complacent. I thought I could blend in, be careful, maintain the illusion. I forgot how much humanity fears what it doesn't understand. Marcus reached out, touching her shoulder. Through the bond, he felt her anguish, her self-recrimination, her fear, not for herself but for him and Emma. Hey, he said softly. We're alive. We're together. That's what matters. Seraphine turned to look at him. Tears, red tears, blood tears, tracking down her perfect face. You've lost everything because of me. Your home, your stability, Emma's school. You were finally building something, and I destroyed it. You saved us first, Marcus reminded her. Everything else, we'll figure out. In the back seat, Emma had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from terror. Marcus looked at his daughter, then at the vampire who kept her alive, and made a decision. Where do we go now? I have properties. Safe houses from centuries of needing to disappear. We'll pick one far from here. Rebuild. Create new identities. Seraphine wiped away the bloody tears. You and Emma will have a life. I promise. What about you? I'll do what I've always done. Survive. She started the engine again. But for the first time in 3,000 years, I won't be doing it alone. They drove into the pre-dawn darkness. 3 refugees bound by blood and circumstance. A vampire queen, a single father, and a 6-year-old who deserved better than running from monster hunters, but who would, at least, have people who died protect her. The sun rose somewhere behind them, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, and Marcus Webb realized that normal life was gone forever. What replaced it remained to be seen. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the balcony of a townhouse in New Orleans, watching rain fall over the French Quarter. The city sprawled below in a maze of wrought iron and history, a place where the supernatural felt at home among beignets and jazz. They'd landed here after 2 months of running. Safe houses in Delaware, Maryland, Tennessee, each abandoned when Seraphine sensed pursuit. Finally, New Orleans, where vampire legends were so common that one more bloodsucker barely registered, where the Catholic Church had influence but the old ways, voodoo, hoodoo, spiritualism, held equal power and complicated the hunter's self-righteous narrative. Emma attended a Montessori school now, having adapted to upheaval with the resilience of children. She'd made friends, joined the after-school art program, stopped asking when they'd go home. This was home now, a rented townhouse in the Garden District, close enough to Seraphine's mansion in the Marigny to maintain the bond, far enough to provide Emma normalcy. The arrangement had evolved. Seraphine had learned her lesson about starvation. She fed carefully from willing donors now, humans who knew what she was and offered blood for payment or thrill or their own dark reasons. Marcus provided the anchor, the tether, but she no longer relied solely on him, which should have been a relief. Instead, Marcus found himself jealous, missing the intimacy of those feedings, the way her mind had merged with his, the vulnerability they'd shared. He'd become something he never imagined, in love with a vampire. It had crept up slowly. The late-night conversations after Emma slept. The way Seraphine had held him when he'd broken down crying one night. Grief for Sarah and their lost life overwhelming him. Her patience teaching Emma to ride a bike. The fierce protectiveness in her eyes when anyone threatened what she called her family. And the bond. God, the bond. It was intimate in ways Marcus couldn't explain to anyone who hadn't experienced it. He felt her emotions constantly now, a background hum of her presence. When she was happy, he felt lighter. When she was in pain, he ached. When she was hunting, he felt the thrill of the chase. And sometimes, late at night, he felt her loneliness. 3,000 years of it, an ocean of isolation that his presence only slightly eased. The balcony door opened. Seraphine emerged, wrapped in a silk robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked almost human in these moments, just a beautiful woman in her mid-20s, not the ancient predator she truly was. "Can't sleep?" she asked, joining him at the railing, thinking. Marcus glanced at her. About everything. About how he got here. Regrets? No. Which is weird, right? I should regret making a deal with a vampire. I should regret running from hunters. I should miss West Virginia and our old life. He shook his head. But I don't. Emma's happier than I've ever seen her. I'm different, better. And you? Me? Seraphine's crimson eyes found his. You become family. The words came out simply. More than that, I care about you, Seraphine, not just because of the bond, not just because you saved us. I care about you, the woman who cries over sad movies, who reads Emma bedtime stories in ancient Egyptian when she thinks no one notices, who still mourns a daughter who died 3,000 years ago. Seraphine was quiet for a long moment. Rain pattered around them, warm and humid, so different from Appalachian storms. Finally, she spoke. I told myself I couldn't feel this anymore, that I'd buried the capacity for love with Nefret, that surviving eternity meant closing off pieces of my heart until only hunger remained. She turned to face him fully. You and Emma broke through. Made me remember what it's like to care whether someone lives or dies, to fear losing them, to want to protect them not because they're mine, but because She hesitated, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. Because I love them. Marcus's breath caught. You love us. Terribly, inconveniently, dangerously. A small smile touched her lips. I'm 3,000 years old, Marcus. I've had lovers, hundreds of them, beautiful people, powerful people, fascinating people. But I never let them matter. Never let them be more than temporary companions in an endless existence. She reached out, cupping his face with cool hands. You matter. Emma matters. You become the reason I wake each night. And that's terrifying because you're mortal, fragile, and I will eventually lose you. Not for a long time, Marcus reminded her. The bond slows my aging, remember? You said I'd have decades more. Decades are nothing to me. A blink. I'll watch you grow old, while I stay frozen at 25 forever. I'll watch Emma grow old. Bury you both. And then I'll have another 3,000 years of remembering what it felt like to have a family. Bloody tears welled in her eyes. Sometimes I think I made a mistake binding us. That I should have stayed alone. That I've doomed myself to heartbreak. Marcus pulled her close, and she let him, resting her head against his shoulder, an ancient being seeking comfort from a former construction worker who barely understood his own feelings half the time. Then we make it count, he said firmly. However much time we have, decades, centuries, whatever the bond gives us, we make every moment worth the eventual grief. We build something beautiful. We give Emma the best life possible. We love each other fiercely enough that the memory sustains you when we're gone. Seraphine pulled back, searching his face. You'd really stay with me? Knowing I'm a monster? Knowing what I've done to survive? You're not a monster. You're a woman who was given impossible choices and did what she had to. Marcus meant it. He'd felt her memories through the bond, the kills, the blood, the moral compromises of 3 millennia. He'd also felt her restraint, her attempt at honor, her hatred of senseless cruelty. You've killed, yeah, but you've also saved. You protected. You're saving Emma and me right now. That counts. Even knowing I'll probably have to kill again, the hunters won't stop. Father Benedict's group has connections throughout the church. They'll keep looking. Then we stay smart. Stay careful. Marcus took her hands. And if they come again, we face them together. Together? Seraphine tested the word like it was foreign. Then she leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. I've never had together before. Not like this. Not in 3,000 years. They stood like that. 2 beings bound by blood and circumstance and something stronger than either, while rain fell over New Orleans and somewhere night, the world kept turning. Inside, Emma stirred in her sleep, dreaming of art class and her friend Zoe, and maybe, in the mysterious way children sense things, dreaming of safety, of being loved, of having a father who'd walk through fire for her, and a protector with crimson eyes who'd face down heaven and hell to keep her safe. The next morning brought news. Father Benedict's group had been officially disbanded by the Vatican. Too many civilian casualties. Too much collateral damage. The church was distancing itself from vampire hunters, preferring bureaucracy and denial over medieval warfare. Seraphine read the report on her laptop, a smile playing at her lips. I may have made some calls. 3,000 years buys you significant influence, even with the church. I know cardinals who owe me favors from the Renaissance. Bishops I saved during the plague. She closed the laptop. We're not completely safe. Individual hunters might still come, but the organized threat is gone. Marcus felt tension. He hadn't known. He was carrying Drain away. So, we can actually build a life here? Put down roots? Perhaps, if you want to. Seraphine looked at him seriously. I need to ask you something. The bond between us, it can be strengthened, made permanent. It would extend your life significantly, probably centuries. You'd age maybe 1 year for every 50 that pass. Emma would have her father for her entire life, her children's lives, her grandchildren's lives. Marcus's heart hammered. What's the cost? You'd be more like me. Not vampire. You'd still eat food, still need sleep, still be fundamentally human. But you'd be touched by immortality, set apart, and you'd be bound to me completely. Where I go, you go. We'd be partners in all things. In all things. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Seraphine actually blushed, a faint pink beneath her pale skin. I'm asking if you consider being my companion, my consort, in the old terminology, bonded not just by blood magic, but by choice, by love, She took a breath. I'm asking if you'd choose to spend centuries with me, Marcus Webb, knowing what I am, knowing the darkness that comes with my existence. Marcus thought of Emma growing up with a father who'd never abandoned her through death, of watching her have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, of having time, real, abundant time, to build something meaningful with Seraphine. He thought of Sarah, his beautiful wife who'd wanted him to be happy, who'd made him promise at her hospital bedside to not waste his life mourning her. Live, she'd whispered with her last breath. Find joy. Love again. He'd thought that was impossible, that his heart had been buried with her. But grief wasn't betrayal, and loving Seraphine didn't diminish what he'd shared with Sarah. The heart, apparently, had infinite capacity. Yes, he said simply. I choose you. I choose this. All of it. Seraphine's face transformed. For a moment, she looked young, not ageless, but genuinely young, full of hope and joy. Then she was kissing him, and Marcus tasted rain and jasmine, and 3,000 years of loneliness finally ending. When they broke apart, she pressed something into his hand. A ring, silver with a red stone, not ruby, something darker, older. This was my daughter's, Seraphine said softly. The only thing I kept from my human life. I want you to have it, to seal this, our covenant. Marcus slipped the ring on. It fit perfectly. Through the bond, he felt it click into place. Not just the jewelry, but the decision, the commitment, a promise made not before God, but before something older. The raw, wild truth of two souls choosing each other against all odds. When do we do the ritual? He asked. Tonight, under the dark moon. We'll deepen the bond, and you'll become something new. Not quite human, not quite vampire, but ours, a creation of two worlds merged. Seraphine's smile was fierce. You'll be the first of your kind, Marcus, my consort, my equal, my love. That night, while Emma slept safely in her room protected by Ward, Seraphine had paid a voodoo priestess to place. They performed the ritual in the townhouse's courtyard. Candles, blood, words and languages that predated civilization. Marcus drank deeper from Seraphine's vein than ever before, and she drank from him until the line between them blurred completely. He felt himself changing, cells restructuring, DNA rewriting. His heartbeat slowed, strengthened, his senses sharpened. He could suddenly hear Emma's heartbeat 2 floors away, smell jasmine from gardens blocks distant, see in the darkness like it was twilight. But he wasn't vampire. His heart still beat. He still breathed. He was something between, something new. When it was done, Seraphine held him as he adjusted to his new existence. How do you feel? Alive? Marcus laughed. More alive than I've ever been. I can feel everything. Is this what you experience all the time? Welcome to enhanced existence. Seraphine smiled. You'll learn to filter the input. For now, enjoy the novelty. They made love that night. The first time since his transformation, and Marcus understood why vampires had reputations for seduction. Every sensation was magnified, every touch electric. He felt Seraphine's pleasure through the bond at the same time as his own, a feedback loop of ecstasy that left them both gasping and laughing and marveling at what they'd become. Afterward, wrapped in each other, Seraphine whispered, I never thought I'd have this again. Companionship, love, family. Thank you, Marcus Webb, for being foolish enough to open your door when a monster came knocking. Thank you, Marcus replied, for being kind enough to knock. Outside, New Orleans breathed around them. A city that had always made space for the supernatural, the strange, the love stories that defied logic. A place where a vampire queen and her mortal-turned-immortal consort could build a life alongside a 6-year-old girl who deserved every good thing the world could offer. Emma woke the next morning to find her father making pancakes, something normal and beautiful and safe. She didn't notice that he moved with slightly more grace, that his eyes were sharper, that the gray in his hair had disappeared completely overnight. She just knew her father smiled more now, that the sadness that had haunted him since Mama died was finally lifting, that Miss Seraphine was around more often, and when they were together, they looked at each other the way Emma's friend Madison's parents did, like they shared secrets and promises, and forever. Daddy, Emma asked around a mouthful of pancake, "Is Miss Seraphine going to live with us?" Marcus glanced at Seraphine, who just entered the kitchen, comfortable in their space in a way she'd never been before. Their eyes met, and the bond hung between them, love and commitment, and the understanding that this strange, impossible family was real. "Would you like that?" Marcus asked his daughter. Emma considered seriously. "Yeah, she tells good stories. And she keeps the scary dreams away." She paused. "Also, she can reach the top shelf, and you can't, Daddy." Seraphine burst out laughing, a sound Marcus had rarely heard, bright and genuine and young. "Well, practical considerations are important." "Then yes," Marcus said. "She's going to be around a lot, part of our family. Is that okay with you, Emma?" "Okay." Emma went back to her pancakes, accepting with the easy flexibility of childhood that their family now included a 7-foot-tall woman with an unusual sleep schedule and old-fashioned vocabulary. Kids adapted. It was their superpower. Over breakfast, they made plans. Emma's art show at school next week. A trip to the aquarium. Normal things. Human things. The life Marcus had prayed for and Seraphine had made possible, even if the method was unconventional. Later, after Emma left for school, Seraphine pulled Marcus close on the couch, her head resting on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Slower now, but still steady, still human enough. "I've walked this earth for 3,000 years, she said quietly, seen empires rise and fall, witnessed miracles and atrocities, loved and lost, and learned to stop caring, because caring hurt too much." She tilted her head up to meet his eyes. "But you, Emma, this impossible little family we've built from desperation and blood magic, this is the best thing I've ever created. Thank you for letting me be part of it." Marcus kissed her forehead. "We're the lucky ones. Not everyone gets saved by a vampire queen." "No," Seraphine agreed. "But then, not every vampire queen is lucky enough to knock on the right door at midnight and find a man brave enough to answer." They sat together in comfortable silence, two beings who shouldn't work but did, bound by choice and blood and love in a city that had always understood that the most beautiful things were often the most impossible. Outside, New Orleans carried on, jazz drifting from bars, tourists snapping photos, the Mississippi rolling past with the weight of history. And in a Garden District townhouse, a family that defied nature itself proved that sometimes the monsters are the ones who save you, and sometimes salvation comes with fangs and crimson eyes and a love that can outlast centuries. Emma came home from school with a gold star on her spelling test. Seraphine helped her practice piano. Marcus made dinner. Spaghetti, Emma's favorite. They watched a movie together. The three of them crowded on the couch, Seraphine having to fold her impossible height to fit. It was ordinary. It was beautiful. It was everything Marcus had begged for that rainy night in West Virginia when he'd hit bottom and prayed for a miracle. He'd gotten his miracle. It just came in a form he never expected. As Emma drifted off to sleep that night, Marcus tucked her in and whispered the promise he'd made 3,000 times. "I love you, baby girl, always and forever." "Always and forever," Emma murmured back, already half dreaming. In the hallway, Seraphine waited, her ancient eyes soft with affection. "Good father," she said when he emerged. "Learning from the best," Marcus replied. 3,000 years of existing means you've probably seen every parenting mistake possible, and made a few myself. Seraphine's expression turned melancholy for a moment, thinking of Nefret. Then she shook it off. "But we learn. We adapt. We become better." They walked to their bedroom. Shared now, officially, no more pretense. The ring Seraphine had given Marcus caught the light, dark stone gleaming. A promise. A bond. A future measured not in decades, but in centuries. "I love you," Marcus said, testing the words. They felt right. "I love you too," Seraphine replied. "My consort, my tether, my unexpected salvation." They had time. So much time. To build, to love, to create memories that would sustain them through whatever came next. The hunters might return. New threats might emerge. The world might change in 1,000 unpredictable ways, but they'd face it together. A vampire queen, her immortal consort, and a little girl who'd never know how close she'd come to losing everything before a monster knocked on their door and offered salvation. In the end, that's what it came down to. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's bonds forged in desperation. Sometimes it's a vampire's honor, and a father's love, and a child's innocent acceptance. Sometimes miracles do have fangs. And sometimes, when you're at the end of your rope and pray for help, the answer comes from the darkness itself, bringing not destruction but hope, not damnation but redemption, not an ending but a beginning that could last forever. Marcus Webb had made a deal with a vampire queen to save his daughter. He'd gained a family that defied every natural law. He'd found love in the most impossible place. And as he held Seraphine close that night, feeling her cool skin against his, hearing her voice murmur contentment in languages older than English, he understood that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never see coming. Sometimes the monsters are the heroes. And sometimes, just sometimes, the story doesn't end in tragedy, but in hope, in love, in a future written not by fate, but by the choices we make when everything falls apart. The rain returned to New Orleans that night, gentle and warm, washing the city clean. And in a townhouse in the Garden District, 3 souls, one ancient, one transformed, one innocent, slept peacefully, protected by bonds stronger than blood, deeper than magic, and more enduring than time itself.